October 14th, 2025. Hundreds of millions of people woke up to find out their computer, the one sitting on their desk, working perfectly fine, had just been abandoned by Microsoft. No more security updates, no more patches, no more protection, just a blinking message telling them to buy something new. But here's what Microsoft didn't tell you. When Windows 11 launched, 55% of existing PCs were declared incompatible, not because they couldn't run it, but because they lacked a feature called TPM 2.0, a security module already built into most modern processors, one that Microsoft suddenly decided was non-negotiable. Meanwhile, Microsoft posted $281.7 billion in revenue for fiscal year 2025. Their cloud and AI division alone grew 26% in a single quarter. Your computer didn't get old. Microsoft made it old. On purpose. This is the story of how the most powerful software company in history turned its own operating system into a trap, and how hundreds of millions of people walked right into it. If you want to see exactly how Microsoft engineered this betrayal, hit like and subscribe, because what comes next is going to make you furious. To understand how big the betrayal was, you have to understand how much trust they had to burn. For 3 decades, Windows was the operating system of the world. Not just America, the world, schools in Brazil, hospitals in Germany, small businesses in the Philippines, government offices everywhere. Windows wasn't just software, it was infrastructure. It was the invisible foundation that kept civilization running. At its peak, Windows ran on over 1.5 billion active devices globally. Microsoft didn't just dominate the PC market, they were the PC market, and they built that dominance on a simple, unspoken promise. Buy our software and we'll take care of you. We'll update it. We'll protect it. We'll make it better. Windows 7 was beloved. Windows 10 was genuinely good, stable, fast, familiar. By 2020, Windows 10 had over 1 billion active users, 1 billion people who trusted Microsoft with their most personal device, their work, their photos, their financial records, their lives. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said the company's mission was to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Every person, every organization. Remember that promise. Because what came next was the exact opposite. In June 2021, Microsoft announced Windows 11. They called it the next generation of Windows. They showed a clean interface, rounded corners, a centered taskbar. It looked like progress. But buried in the fine print was a list of hardware requirements unlike anything Microsoft had ever demanded before. TPM 2.0, secure boot, 8th generation Intel processors, or AMD Ryzen 2000 series or newer. If your PC didn't have all of these, every single one, you were out. Not out of the new features, out of Windows entirely. A survey by IT asset management platform Lansweeper, based on 30 million Windows devices from 60,000 organizations, found that only 44% of workstation CPUs met the requirements. Only half of workstations met the TPM requirements. And in virtual machine environments, the backbone of corporate IT, only 0.23% of systems had TPM 2.0 enabled. Microsoft's official response? They would not lower these requirements. Not a negotiation, not a compromise, a declaration. And here's the hypocrisy that should make your blood boil. They called it a free upgrade. Free, as long as your PC was new enough. As long as it had a chip most people had never heard of. As long as you fit inside a definition of eligible so narrow that more than half the world's computers didn't qualify. A free upgrade that millions of people could only get by buying a new machine. That's not an upgrade. That's a shakedown. But why? Why would Microsoft deliberately exclude more than half the world's PCs from their own operating system? Follow the money. It always tells the truth. Microsoft's fiscal year 2025 revenue, $281.7 billion. Their cloud and AI segment, the one powered by Copilot, the AI they're forcing into Windows, grew 26% in a single quarter. Azure, their cloud platform, grew 34% for the full year. The more personal computing division, which includes Windows OEM licensing, grew 9% in Q4 alone. PC sales exploded in the third quarter of 2025, not because of exciting new technology, but because the Windows 10 deadline was forcing millions of people to buy new hardware. Analysts called it deadline-driven demand. Translation: Microsoft manufactured urgency, and the PC industry cashed in. Every time someone walked into a store and bought a new laptop because their old one was incompatible, Microsoft was already counting the money. Lenovo, Dell, HP, all of them had pre-installation agreements with Microsoft. Every new PC sold came with Windows 11. Every Windows 11 installation came with Copilot. Every Copilot interaction pushed users toward Microsoft 365 subscriptions. It's a pipeline. And the entrance to that pipeline was the TPM requirement that made your old PC worthless. For enterprises that couldn't upgrade, Microsoft offered extended security updates, paid patches for Windows 10 at $61 per device per year, with prices doubling every consecutive year. So if your business had 10,000 machines that couldn't run Windows 11, Microsoft charged you $610,000 a year just to stay protected. Not for new features, not for improvements, just to not get hacked. This wasn't a software upgrade, this was a toll booth, and Microsoft built the wall themselves. But the hardware trap was just the beginning. Because once Microsoft got you onto Windows 11, they had something else planned. In May 2024, Microsoft unveiled Windows Recall. They called it a photographic memory for your PC, an AI feature that would take screenshots of everything you do every 5 seconds and store them locally so you could search your own history. Sounds useful, until you realize what everything means. Let's call her Sarah. She's a nurse at a hospital in Ohio. It's a Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. She logs into the patient management system, reviews medication records, checks a diagnosis. On her break, she opens her personal email, checks her bank account, reads a private message from her husband about a surprise birthday party for their daughter. Every 5 seconds, Windows Recall is taking a picture of all of it. The patient records, the bank balance, the private message, storing it, indexing it, making it searchable. Sarah didn't turn it on. She probably doesn't even know it's running, but it's capturing her entire digital life, screenshot by screenshot. Now multiply Sarah by over 1 billion Windows 11 users. Cybersecurity researcher Kevin Beaumont discovered that Recall stored its screenshot database in an unencrypted, easily accessible location. A hacker with physical access to your machine or malware already on it could extract your entire digital life. Every password field you'd ever typed into, every private conversation, every financial document, every medical record. Another researcher, Alex Hagena, built a tool called Total Recall to demonstrate just how easy it was to extract everything Recall had captured. The backlash was immediate and volcanic. Cybersecurity experts called it a surveillance tool dressed up in friendly language. Signal, the encrypted messaging app, had to build an entirely new feature just to block Recall from screenshotting private conversations. Microsoft was forced to delay the feature entirely, make it opt-in instead of on by default, require biometric authentication, and rebuild the encryption architecture from scratch. What they promised, a helpful AI memory feature. What they built, an unencrypted screenshot database of your entire digital life, on by default, accessible to anyone who touched your machine. They didn't pull it because they cared about your privacy. They pulled it because they got caught. Recall wasn't the only thing Microsoft forced on you, it was just the most dangerous. Because while the Recall scandal was burning, Microsoft was running a quieter experiment, one that touched every single Windows 11 user, whether they wanted it or not. They were turning your operating system into a delivery vehicle for Copilot, their AI assistant that almost nobody asked for. It started small. A Copilot button appeared in the taskbar. You could ignore it. Then it showed up in Microsoft Edge. Fine. That's a browser. Browsers change. But then it spread, like an infection. Copilot appeared in Notepad. Notepad, the simplest text editor ever built. The app that hasn't fundamentally changed since 1985. Suddenly, if you selected a chunk of text and right-clicked, Windows offered to let AI summarize it or rewrite it for you. In Notepad, the app people use to jot down a phone number. Then it was Paint, then Photos, then Snipping Tool, then File Explorer, the basic tool you use to find your own files on your own computer. Every corner of Windows became a billboard for an AI subscription, and not just a button in the corner. Microsoft was pushing upsells inside these apps, nudging you toward Copilot Pro and Microsoft 365 subscriptions every time you opened a tool you'd been using for free for decades. And here's the part that should terrify you. After Microsoft crammed Copilot into Notepad, security researchers discovered that the integration had created an actual vulnerability, a security flaw in Notepad that had to be patched. Microsoft had taken the most harmless application in the history of computing and made it a security risk, because they couldn't resist adding AI to it. Meanwhile, the rest of the operating system was falling apart. File Explorer slowed to a crawl. Updates broke keyboards and mice. A critical update in October 2025 broke local host connections, destroying local development environments for millions of programmers. The start menu crashed. Bluetooth stopped working. Basic functionality that had worked for years was deteriorating because Microsoft's engineers were too busy bolting AI onto everything to maintain the foundation. The internet had a word for what Microsoft was doing. Actually, they had two. The tech community called it "enshittification," the deliberate degradation of a product to extract more value from captive users. But regular people found a better name. They started calling the company Microslop, and the name stuck. In November 2025, Pavan Davuluri, the executive in charge of Windows, posted a blog announcing that Microsoft planned to turn Windows into an agentic operating system. More AI, deeper AI, AI that could act on your behalf without you asking. The post generated thousands of negative replies, so many that Davuluri did something you almost never see a Microsoft executive do. He turned off the comments. Users built tools to fight back. Winslop, an open-source utility whose entire purpose is to strip Copilot out of Windows 11, disable AI features, and undo what Microsoft had done. The fact that third-party software exists solely to make your operating system usable again tells you everything about Microsoft's priorities. And they're not you. But here's where this story takes a turn. On March 20th, 2026, just weeks ago, Davuluri published another blog post. This time, the tone was different. He admitted that Windows 11 had gone off track. He announced what Microsoft called a quality reset. They would remove Copilot from Photos, Notepad, Snipping Tool, and widgets. They would pause adding new Copilot buttons to system apps. They would focus on fixing performance, stability, and reliability, the things that should have been the priority all along. Microsoft spent 2 years forcing Copilot into every app on your computer. Then they had to publicly announce they were taking it all back out. That's not iteration, that's not learning. That's a company that got so drunk on AI that it forgot what an operating system is supposed to do: work. They didn't roll it back because they had a change of heart. They rolled it back because you made them. Here's where the story gets satisfying. Microsoft built a trap, but they forgot one thing: people can walk away. By early 2026, Windows 11 had surged to over 72% market share among Windows users. That sounds like a win, until you realize that even after Windows 10's official death, more than a quarter of Windows users were still refusing to upgrade. Hundreds of millions of people looked at everything Microsoft had done: the hardware requirements, the surveillance tools, the ads in their file manager, the Copilot buttons in their Notepad, and said no. Some went to Linux. Linux's desktop market share reached 5% for the first time. A number that sounds small until you remember it represents tens of millions of people who chose to learn an entirely new operating system from scratch rather than accept what Microsoft had become. Some stayed on Windows 10 with no security updates, accepting the risk of cyber attacks rather than hand their data to Microsoft's AI pipeline. And some bought new PCs, exactly what Microsoft wanted, but they bought them angry. They bought them knowing they'd been manipulated, and they told everyone they knew. The irony is devastating. Microsoft had promised that Windows 11's strict requirements would create a more secure, more stable ecosystem. Instead, they created a fractured one. Hundreds of millions of unpatched Windows 10 machines still connected to the internet, a user base that actively distrusts their operating system, a community that builds tools specifically to undo Microsoft's decisions. Microsoft had promised to empower every person. Instead, they empowered every person to look for an alternative. So where does this leave us? Windows 11 today, over 72% market share, but built on a foundation of forced obsolescence, surveillance tools, and a user base that feels betrayed. Windows 10, still running on hundreds of millions of machines unpatched because people would rather accept security risks than accept what Microsoft became. Microsoft's revenue, $281.7 billion and climbing, proof that the strategy worked financially, even as it destroyed trust permanently. 1. You cannot manufacture loyalty by manufacturing urgency. Microsoft tried to force users onto Windows 11 by killing Windows 10. Instead, they created a generation of users actively looking for the exit. 2. Surveillance is not a feature. Windows Recall was not a helpful AI tool. It was a data collection system dressed up in friendly language. Users saw through it immediately. They always do. 3. When you treat your users as a revenue stream instead of a community, they stop being your community. The billion Windows 10 users who built Microsoft's empire were discarded the moment they became inconvenient to the upgrade cycle. If you canceled your Microsoft 365 subscription, you were right. If you refused to upgrade to Windows 11, you were right. If you switched to Linux, you were right. Microsoft bet that you had no choice. Turns out you always had a choice. You just needed a reason to use it. Here's my question for you. What would Microsoft have to do to earn your trust back, or is it already too late? Tell me in the comments, because I want to know how many of you they actually lost. If this video made you feel seen, hit like and subscribe. We cover exactly these stories, the moments when the most powerful companies in the world forget who made them powerful. And next time, we're looking at another tech giant that pulled the exact same move on a different product. You're not going to want to miss it.